Welcome to the Smart Publishing Impact Series. I'm Renee Loudermilk, Chief Editor at Smart Publishing, and this is the podcast where we explore all things writing, publishing, and the impact of storytelling. In each episode, I'll share insights and strategies to help you navigate the book journey, whether you're writing, publishing, or already an author. Plus, you'll hear from inspiring authors who are using their book to change lives. And if you're passionate about storytelling and ready to make an impact, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Now let's get started. Welcome to another episode of the Smart Publishing Impact Series. I'm Renee Loudermilk, Chief Editor at Smart Publishing and your host for this podcast. And I'm alone again. I'm just going to stop promising the episode with Jonathan because we cannot get our schedules matched up at all. Last week it was illness. This week it's just, I was off on Monday because Aria, our daughter, didn't start school back until Tuesday. So I was hanging out with her that day. We had Meet the Teacher. So we've got this whole condensed week, at least on my half, and we just could not match up schedules. Both our Wednesdays are too busy, and this gets published on Thursday. So if I'm not recording Wednesday, it doesn't happen, and it's got to happen. So I'm going to stop promising. I'm not going to promise you it's going to be next week. The only thing I'm going to say is it's a priority of ours, and we're going to do it at some point. Also, there's a really timely topic to talk about right now with the biggest book release ever that just happened this past weekend. You may have heard of it, you may not have heard of it. Alex Hormozi released his new book this past weekend, and it absolutely smashed records for the amount of launch day sales. I mean, it was like, and I got to look this up. So, Hormozi book launch. Let's see, how many sales? I mean, it was in the millions. Okay, yeah, so 100 million money models. Goodness, that's some alliteration right there. Over 3.2 million copies sold. Launch generated an estimated 80 million in revenue from book sales alone. So this guy's like number one author right now out there, and I've seen a lot on social media with people just kind of talking about it like, oh wow, this thing just happened. And I saw one person say, why do you think that Alex Hormozi, with all his courses and YouTube videos and stuff, why do you think he publishes books? And I'm sitting here in the editor seat being like, duh, don't you know? But I think, not everybody does know, especially if you're not a reader. If you're a reader, then you're probably thinking, well, yeah, like people love to buy books, people love to read books. People who read books are always looking for new books. Books are a very consumable and collectible type of content. You can't collect and showcase YouTube videos on your bookcase like I have behind me. You can't, a lot of people, some people maybe go back and rewatch YouTube videos and stuff like that. Maybe they go back and look at course content, but not the same way that you use a book as reference, because it's just there, it's tangible. You can grab it. It's at your fingertips. You can bookmark pages, and it's just something that is, because you can hold it in your hands, more enticing for a lot of people. Also, books reign supreme when it comes to content that builds your credibility and authority. And there's actual data on this. So, I want to talk about some of the data. So there was a 2017 study by Smith Publicity, and they found that having a published book increased perceived credibility with potential clients by over 60% compared to peers without books. So that basically means if they're shopping between, let's just say you do consulting, they're shopping between you as a consultant and another consultant, and that consultant is a published author, they're probably going to win out because they're going to see that person as 60% more credible than you because they are a published author. that doesn't happen when, oh, that person has a course. Oh, that person has a free PDF download. Oh, that person has a website. Oh, that person has YouTube videos. No, there is just something special about being a published author that sets people apart. And the data shows a Statista survey in 2022, professionals ranked books and published research above blogs, podcasts, and social posts in terms of trustworthiness for thought leadership. So there's also a link there where they simply see bloggers, podcasts, or people who are all over social media as less trustworthy than somebody who has a book or possibly more books. Especially, we see that books have a compounding effect. So when you are a published author of not just one book, but multiple books, it actually compounds in your authority, your credibility, and your trustworthiness. Finally, the Edelman LinkedIn B2B thought leadership study, which was done in 2021, noted that decision makers place the highest trust in long form, in depth content, books being the ultimate form. So we can see a couple, we can glean a couple lessons from that. And those lessons are, there's something about a tangible book and being a published author that makes you more trustworthy than any other content that you could put out. And that is why authority and credibility get built off of books. And that's why guys like Alex Hormozi are out there publishing books. Sure, could he make, a bunch of money by putting out another course, by putting out another YouTube video? Yeah, but how is that really different from what anybody else in his space is doing? Um, his book is going to be out there being read and sitting on people's shelves for years and years from now, while whatever course or whatever YouTube video is long since forgotten. Um, so, there are other considerations too. So let's talk about speaking engagements, media appearances, even networking. Yeah, everybody has business cards. Well, I don't think everybody has business cards anymore. That's kind of becoming a dated thing of the past. A lot of people have business cards. Everybody has a website. Not everybody has a book. And so when you get into the speaking industry, which starts as little as the level of podcast guest and as much as the level of keynote speaker, especially by the time you get to keynote speaker, you're not going to get a keynote speaking gig if you're not a published author. It's almost seen as a gateway to entry. It's something that you have to have in order to play the game. Jonathan and I have relationships with different speaking agencies, and these speaking agencies will either direct people who want to work with them to get a book done, or will not work with them if they don't have a book. So again, it's the key to open the door. Media appearances, that too. So journalists and podcast hosts, and anybody else in that genre, but specifically journalists, they love interviewing authors since their ideas are already packaged in a credible and vetted form that can be referenced. So it's like, if I'm a journalist and I'm quoting someone, I want to have something that backs up why I'm quoting that person. And when you go search news articles, where people are quoted, you're not going to see somebody say, author of the YouTube video, XYZ. You're just not going to see that. It's going to be author of such and such book, professor at such and such university. So you're either going to have a highly credible, visible role in what you do, or you're going to be a published author, or both. Think about, people like Dave Evans, the author of Design Your Life. He's both a published author and he's a Stanford professor. I go search his name. He's probably quoted in tons and tons and tons of stuff, because that's an attractive voice for journalists out there to be able to quote. It makes them look better. And then, of course, networking. I actually have an author who is taking a whole bunch of this book right here, if you're watching the video, a whole bunch of his new book to pretty much every conference that he goes to. His industry has 50 bajillion conferences, and he will be bringing author copies of his book to every single one because it's such a differentiator for him to be able to hand over a book. Because it's not just a business card or a website. A book is literally like, oh, wow, this guy's established and I get to learn a whole lot about this guy's expertise, way more than I would ever learn in a video, on a website, and a business card, because a book is essentially a brain dump of yours that grows know, like, trust through educating people and bringing people into this sort of close knit space, readable space with you, where they get to feel like they are learning a little bit more about who you are through your content. So those are a lot of different ways that books can open doors to opportunities. And then think about longevity and authority versus other content. Social posts, those fade within hours or days. Or if it's one of my social posts, it fades within like 5 seconds. My mother goes and comments on it. I'm kidding. Um, but podcasts, videos, those can last weeks or months. But again, like, think about the barrier to entry in like uploading a YouTube video. People upload the YouTube videos every single day. People don't publish books every single day, okay? And so all these videos are sort of churning over as more videos are added and more things are sort of sparking the algorithm, with both within social media and places like YouTube. Books last decades. They remain searchable, purchasable, quotable. You can update them. So my book, The 1 Hour Author, is currently in first edition, but I actually go through it every single year. And this is something that a lot of authors with researched information do. They'll audit their book every single year and see if there have been any updates, update that in the manuscript and update the new manuscript. And now that's second edition. So it's something that you can even keep updated. In fact, if I wanted to go back to my first book, Leading Through Love, and try to drive that to bestseller, I could do it. That book has been published for years. But if I wanted to bring it back to the top by making it a promotional focus, again, I could easily do that. In fact, I just released the Audible version of it not that long ago and brought it back to the surface again. And so it's something that you can continue to use over and over and over. And so a book builds essentially a permanent platform that reinforces your authority for years and years to come. And so the last thing I'll touch on is why does it work psychologically? So we talked a lot about how published authors are just seen as more trustworthy. One, writing a book shows discipline. I think most people, when they think of writing a book, think, wow, that's a monumental task. And that's why less than 1% of people will ever publish a book in their lifetime, because it is something that requires discipline and commitment. There are so many people who start books, and there are very few people who finish books. It's just like going and running, an Ironman or something. There's probably a lot of people who start the race and very few who finish it. It also demonstrates knowledge. It's really hard to fill that many pages if you don't have anything to fill that many pages with. Although there are books out there that are basically like, total filler. I've read a few books where I like get through a few pages and I'm like, what did I even just read? Like, what are they saying? So that's not exclusive. Leadership, these are traits people naturally associate with credibility. And then I talked about this earlier, but the tangible nature of a book, it's something people can hold. They can gift it to someone else. They can cite it. It reinforces authority in a way that digital only content rarely achieves. So in short, publishing a book remains one of the most powerful ways to establish authority and credibility. It's not just content, it's like a credential, because I don't go and I say published published YouTuber, you know, I'm a best-selling author. That is a credential that I get to put next to my name after I've done that. Even if you don't hit bestseller, you still get to put that you're a published author. So that is why Alex Hormozi is writing books and not just doing another YouTube video or another course, or all the different things that everybody else does because they're simply easier to do. Writing a book is again, it's a commitment, and when you do it, as the data showed, it separates you. It sets you apart in your marketplace. So that is today's episode, which coincidentally is episode number 30. Woohoo! We've made it this far, and we're gonna keep making it farther and farther. As I always say, if you have not yet subscribed to this podcast, please hit the subscribe button so that you can get every new episode that comes out. These get published typically on Thursdays, most always on Thursdays. I think maybe I've missed one in the history of this show. If you would please just, spend 60 seconds to rate and review, I would be ever so honored and grateful. It helps get this podcast out in front of more people who can really benefit from the education and information that I freely give in this podcast. That is the goal of this podcast, is the impact series, because I want to have a positive impact on people who are thinking about writing a book, people who are writing a book, and people who have written a book. And lastly, tell somebody that you know about this. If you know anybody who's ever considered writing a book, or maybe they're midstream in writing a book, or even if they already have written a book, I share a wide array of content on this, everything from different tips of writing to marketing your book, to all the different publishing ins and outs. I have a whole one on how to hit bestseller that literally gives you the game on that. So there is a whole lot of just gold nugget content that gets published. And if you've not connected with me yet, I am on Facebook. Look me up, Renee Loudermilk. I'm the only one in the world, so I'm the only one that will come up. And if for some reason you see a spoof account, please let me know. That hasn't happened to me yet, knock on wood. But I should be the only one. And you can always connect with me on smartpublishingservices.com. So as I always say as my sign off, keep writing your story, because the world needs your voice. Until next time, take care now.